Well, happy fall, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. We got a really hot topic, controlled substances, and it looks like most of the folks, if not all the folks, are currently using PSTrax. So welcome back, and hopefully today we'll be able to share some tips and tricks that maybe you weren't already aware of, or if you aren't currently using the controlled substance module, we can give you kind of an overview of it and see if it might work for your agency. So thank you for doing the polls that Liz just launched. We'll go ahead and hop into it here. Obviously, the objective today, we're going to talk about DEA, the tracking of your controlled substances from really cradle to grave, all the way through when you order them and receive those vials until ultimately they either get administered or expired. And really the big goal of this, right, is to be able to limit or decrease the possibility of diversions. And unfortunately, when it comes to diversions, if there's a will, there's a way, as they say. But what we want to do is try to do everything possible to try to eliminate those as best we can. So we'll talk about some of the different checks and balances in the system and how we just make sure that we're keeping those vials safe and in the right hands. So one of the DEA requirements is to have record keeping of all of your different vials, and that includes the complete chain of custody from the time that you receive the vials from your vendor or a pharmacy, if you do restocks from a hospital, for example. And once you get those vials, this is kind of the typical process that we'll see. Obviously, this varies a little bit agency by agency, but usually agencies will order the vials or go and get the vials. They typically will have a main vault that they store those in, or a safe. And that's kind of the main restock location for the agency. And then sometimes, particularly if you're a larger agency, you might have battalion vaults that you transfer from the main vault into. And then usually, every vehicle, or, the ALS vehicles, for example, will have drug boxes on them that are carrying the narcotics. And that's where the medics will be, ultimately, using a vial from when they need to administer it for a patient, or if it becomes expired. So what we do at PSTrax, as you know, there's a lot of steps along the way as that vial kind of moves through the agency, and many departments still track this process on paper today. So obviously you'll have a restock event when you initially get those vials. Once they're in the main vault, you might be doing an inventory check once a week or once a month, for example, on that main vault. Obviously, you're going to be transferring vials, so from that main vault out to battalion vaults, doing inventory checks on any other vaults that you have. Once they're in the vault, transferring out to the individual drug boxes that'll be carrying them on the rigs. And that's kind of when we start getting into the crew checks, right? And typically that'll include an arriving, departing check that the crews do in the morning, just to make sure all the vials are still in the right location. And depending on your agency, you may also have seal tags that are part of that process, where the crews are checking an individual seal tag. So we accommodate that as well. And then finally, when that vial gets administered or used, we need to capture that last event to kind of complete the history, if you will, for that individual vial. So in the system, Liz kind of mentioned, I'll hop into the demo here in a minute, and we'll kind of walk through each of these steps. But from a very high level, that's kind of what we'll be discussing today and kind of illustrating within the system. There are a couple other unique processes that we see across the country. For example, I mentioned seal tags already, but another one is box swaps, is what we call it. And some agencies, when they use a vial out of a drug box, they'll actually take that entire box back to usually to the headquarters and swap it for an entirely restocked new box. And so I just wanted to point that out. We won't go into that process in very much detail today, but if that is kind of the process that your agency is using, just know that we can configure the system to meet your needs for that. All right, and probably most of the folks on the phone today are familiar with PSTrax already, but this is kind of what the system looks like. It's a cloud-based system. We capture all of your different checks in one place, and the big thing is it's custom configured for your agency. So based on your process, we'll set up the module and the whole system to accommodate what you're doing. So we don't want you to have to reinvent your wheel, as they say. We want you to be able to keep doing things the way you're doing them, but just do it more efficiently and in a streamlined manner. Obviously, the big benefit is all of your data is electronic. So we capture all of the data, and as it relates to controlled substances, those different events and the different logs will be in the system, and you can export those or report on them with literally the click of a button anytime that you need that. So if the DEA comes in and says, hey, we need all of your controlled substance records, you can go in and show them that. We also track issues. So if there's ever a broken vial, for example, the medics can actually set an alert and they can notify the administrators of that issue so that you're aware of it. We do have some automatic alerts in the controlled substance module as well. For example, if you'd like to receive an alert every time a vial gets used, we can turn that on for you. And another one is if you ever dip below par levels, you can also have an alert notification for that as well. So depending on your agency and how many boxes you have and how many events you have, that may or may not be a little bit overkill for you. But just know that we have that capability. We can turn that on. Obviously, PSTrax, I mentioned, it's a cloud-based system. You can use absolutely any device that you want to access it. It could be a computer like I'm using today, a phone, a tablet, a Toughbook. So whatever hardware and devices your agency already has, you can continue to use those. We do support barcodes and QR codes if you'd like to use those. And then obviously you always own your data. So if down the road you ever have to, move to a different system or you choose to do that, obviously we'll be sad to see it go, but all that data is yours and you have full rights and full access to it. All right, and these are the 7 different modules within PSTrax. Today we're going to focus on the narcotics module, kind of target in on that one. But just know the modules are a la carte, so you can pick and choose what modules you'd like to start with. And the controlled substance module itself, as I mentioned, tracks all those different handoff events along the way. So you have the complete history of every vial and each event that occurs to it. You can actually go in and view that history for any particular vial. So if there's ever, a case where you have to go back for a certain call or an audit or anything like that, and they want the history for an individual control number, you can look up that control number, pull up that vial, and see the full history for it. Obviously, you can track the inventory levels for all your different locations. And what's nice is you can have different par levels for each location. So typically the drug boxes will carry, pretty standard par levels, not always the same, but usually, a few of each controlled substance. And then the vault will typically have a much larger par level since that's what you're restocking out of. So we can adjust and customize those par levels for each of your locations based on what your appropriate stocks are. And finally, we have electronic signature, so the crew members can actually sign off on the events. You can have a primary signature and a witness signature, and we also have PIN number dual authentication. So if you'd like to have the crew members enter a PIN number before they can sign it, that just adds an extra level of security. And that's just an optional configuration that we can turn on if you'd like that. All right, and I think this is the final slide, then we'll hop into the demo. But if you aren't familiar with PSTrax, or maybe you weren't involved in the initial rollout of the other modules that your agency is using, this is one of the things that makes us a little bit different is we actually build the entire system for you. So for controlled substances, all you have to do is send us your data and your documentation. So that would typically include all your drug box locations, the different vials at those locations, and our team will actually handle the entire rest of the process. So we manage the project. We actually will look at your data and fix any errors in it, and then we import that data into the system. We obviously customize the system based on whatever process you'd like. And then once we have it built, we do all the training for your administrators and help you roll out the system to the crews. And then finally, this is another big thing with PSTrax is we provide unlimited ongoing support. So what that means is anytime there's an operational change, so let's say you get a new drug box and you need that loaded into the system, or maybe you start carrying a new controlled substance and you need that added to all of your boxes. When those changes happen, you have the ability as an administrator to go in and do that yourself if you'd like to, or if you don't have time or don't want to mess with it, you can call our team and we'll do that for you. And there's no additional charge for that. It's just part of our service that we provide. And I guess I did have one more. I'm sorry. Misspoke on that last one. But this is just kind of a snapshot of our company. We were founded in 2009. We are privately held, which is very rare these days. And the reason we point that out is we really we put our customers first. We don't have shareholders that we have to answer to. We're very fortunate that we get to answer to our customers, and I think that speaks to our product development and what we get to focus on to make the system better for the agencies we serve. We're based in Littleton, Colorado, which is just south of Denver, and we have 22 full-time employees now, and we serve over 800 agencies across the US, Canada, and Australia. All right, with that, we'll come back to this slide towards the end for some upcoming events that we have. But with that, I'll go ahead and hop into our demo site here. Liz, I'll pause just for a moment and see if there's any questions before I kind of hop in.
Thanks, Brian. So I do have one question. If somebody's already using a different system for tracking narcotics, can you just briefly touch on how easy it is to transfer everything over to PSTrax?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we, as I mentioned, we build the entire module for you. So if you are using another system, our team, if you're comfortable with it, you can give them temporary access to that system you're using. Excuse me, and they can actually go in and export that data and then import it into PSTrax. So it really is a turnkey solution. You don't have to do any of that work if you don't want to. And as I touched on a few times already, we'll custom configure it based on your processes too. So if you have certain ways that you do things, that's how we'll set it up within PSTrax. Thanks, Liz. Okay, so we'll go ahead and kind of hop in here. Every crew member has their own username and login, and that just adds a level of an accountability, right? Because each check that someone does in the system will be time stamped and logged, so you have a historical report of that. And when you log in, this is kind of what the homepage or the home dashboard looks like. And there's a home page for each station. So this is for station 1. Obviously, if you have different stations, different locations, you can change your view at any point. But I'm just going to hang out on station 1 today for demo purposes. And here on the home dashboard, you'll see 3 sections. The schedule is basically all of our different modules kind of integrated into one location. And essentially, anytime you see a number that represents something that's due for the day for the cruise, the alert section in the middle will show you any open issues or discrepancies that you have. And these are broken down into the different kind of operational divisions, if you will. So if we go to controlled substances, we'll see any open alerts that we have. And I can see just at a quick glance that we had a administered event, so it set an alert for that. And that's one of those optional alerts that I mentioned before. So in this case, it looks like a ketamine was used, and you can see the call information and what vial was used on that call. Let's just take a peek at the second one here. This is another automatic alert for par levels. So just letting us know that in our regional vault, we're outside of the acceptable par levels for that one. So any open alerts, again, will be shown here. And the nice thing about this is all the crew members at Station 1 will have access to these open issues. So if there's any updates or comments, you can add those along the way. One I've seen a few times is, maybe the cyber key gets lost or misplaced. So you might have an alert for that as another example. And then finally, the last section on the homepage is the journal. And the journal is really just a digital whiteboard. Anything that you want to post up here, like training, pass on reports, station tours, things like that, you can list them here. And it's a great place for when the crews log in to see that important information. So that's kind of a little bit of a lay of the land of the PSTrax system. Today, we're going to spend most of our time in the controlled substance module. And what we'll do first is kind of walk through the day in the life of a medic and how they would use the system to track their drug box and the different events that they would perform. And then we'll kind of move into some of the more admin events, if you will, like restocking vials from a vendor and looking at some of the report features. So let's go ahead and hop in. A medic would just click into that controlled substance box. And usually the first thing they do in the morning is an arriving departing check to just verify their box. And so they can simply select that event, select whatever box that they're going to be checking. I'm going to do the Medic 1 drug box today. And then we can select how many vials that we have. And if you are using a seal tag, this is where you can input that tag here. Now, what I did on purpose is I actually typed in the wrong quantity for my versed. And you can see here, we have some checks and balances built into the system where if something doesn't quite line up with what the system is calculating, it will give the crews a warning here. And what this is really helpful for is just making sure your logs stay accurate over time. And so in this case, I inputted 2, and basically the system is saying, it looks like that's an incorrect number. And maybe I fat fingered it, right? And I just typed in the wrong one, in which case I can go back and just revise that number. Or sometimes maybe someone in the previous shift forgot to log something, like maybe they forgot to log a usage event, and now that's throwing my counts off, right? So if it was something like that, we can set an alert and let the appropriate people know that we need to do a backdate event to kind of fix that issue. In this case, we're just going to go back and I'll fix my number. We'll say I just mistyped it there. And assuming all the numbers are right, what the crews can do now is verify each control number based on, each vial based on the control number, the lot number, and the expiration date. So we can go through, verify those. You can have a select all box if you'd like to, that's optional. And once all of our vials are verified, we can continue on to the next page. And this is where they'll sign off on it. So we have a primary signature, and then we have a witness signature as well. So we'll make Liz the witness here. And once they finish this event, that will log our arriving departing check in the system. And then over here in the recent activity for our Medic 1 drug box, we'll see that most recent event. So I can see that I just did an arriving check, and we had this quantity of vials. And I can actually click this little tab if I need to and see a breakdown of the specific vials in that location. So again, that's usually the first event that the crews will do, usually bright and early in the morning, right after their coffee, hopefully. And then during the day, if they get called out and need to administer a vial for a patient, they can log an administered event right here. So we'll go ahead and do that next. And again, we'll just select our drug box. We're going to administer a vial, but if you ever have expired or broken vials, or other situations, such as like maybe a full waste, I'm trying to think, maybe a lost vial, for example, or a stolen vial, you can capture those different events up here as well. I'm just going to use one fentanyl, and again, we'll type in our tag number. What's nice for the crews is when they go to administer a vial, it just shows them the vials currently in that box, in that location. So they can just select the one that they use. And as soon as you select it, it opens up this drug card where they can input all the pertinent information about that event. So we'll go ahead and type in an incident number, our administered and wasted amount. You can tie it to an EPCR report if you want to have a EPCR number, weight. So you can actually have up to, I believe it's 6 custom fields in here. So we customize this based on what information you'd like to capture. And then down here below, again, we'll sign off on it. We'll have Liz be our witness. And we'll log that event. Now, once we've logged it, that will also be documented. And over here in the recent history, we're now going to see our most recent event, which is the administered event. And if I open up our vial tab, we'll see that we just have 2 fentanyls remaining. And the reason this is highlighted in orange up here is because we're now below our minimum par level. So this little highlight is just a quick reminder for the medics that now we need to go and do a restock event to get it back up to our par level. So let's go ahead and finish up by doing that. We'll do a transfer event. And we're going to transfer from our main vault into our drug box. And I'm just going to restock 1 fentanyl to get us back up to our par level. And within our main vault, our central supply, these are all the different fentanyls that we have currently. So as an administrator, you can just select the one being transferred over. And once we've done that, we can sign off on it. We'll have Liz be our witness once more, and we'll complete that event. And what that has done is now transferred that vial from our main vault. You can see in our vault, it's transferred out. And in our medic 1 drug box, it's transferred in. So now we have that new vault. I believe it was this one, moved into that location. So that is kind of the process for the medics on a day-to-day basis and what they would do to kind of capture their events. One last event that's more admin specific is when you get restocks from a vendor, or if you go to a pharmacy or a hospital for those, you can use this restock event for that as well. So if we're doing a restock, typically that'll go into your main vault. So you can select your restock location. Let's say we just ordered some from Boundtree. And what's nice about this is we can input the total quantity that we ordered. We can input the starting control number, and it'll actually give you a little hint up here of what the last control number was. So that way you can start sequentially, you can start right after that. Usually the lot number for a shipment is typically the same. So we just have to input that once, and same with the expiration date. If you want to input concentration and volume, those are optional fields, so you can choose whether to use those or not. But what's really nice is once we've input that information, the system will automatically create each individual vial for us one by one in numeric order. So we have vial or control number 8, 9, 10, etc. And it'll just copy that lot number and expiration date to each one. But if there's ever a situation where maybe we have a couple vials that have a different lot number or different expiration date, you can customize that right here. So maybe this one expires on the 23rd instead of the 24th. We can just change that really quickly. And then again, we just need to sign off on it. And once we complete this event, all of these vials will be loaded into our main vault location. So that's kind of how a restock event works. And let's go ahead and look at some of the reports, because that's obviously a really big part of with DEA compliance, is making sure you have your different logs and all of the handoff events. So in PSTrax, the controlled substance logs is kind of the main place where we track those different events as they occur. And you can filter this report a couple different ways. If you want to look at all of your locations, you can do that. Or if you want to narrow it down to a particular location, like the medical and drug box. Events, you can look at all events or a particular type of event if you need to. And then for date range, you can go as far back as you need to. I'll just go back a couple months here. But what that'll do is just pull up all of the records for that box. So here's all of our different events. You can sort and filter by any of these columns up here at the top. And if I scroll down here to the bottom, here are the ones that I just did this morning. So we have our arriving check that we did, our administered check, and then our transfer event where we moved a vial from the drug vault back into the medical and drug box. You can click into each of these as well. So if you want to see the detailed breakdown with all the signatures and all the information, you can open each of these up. And then when you need to export them or provide them to someone, you can also print these or drop them into an Excel file or a PDF file. So those are the logs. Another very handy report is the expiration date report. So this will show you across all your containers or a particular container, just the basically the current status of the expiration dates for that location. So for the Medic 1 drug box, I can see that I have a couple ketamine that are coming up for expiration within 60 days. Also a few Versed as well. So I may want to, in some situations, maybe relocate those to a busier station, for example, where they can get used up. So that's just kind of one example of how you can use this report. Obviously, if anything was expired, then we want to move that out of that location and move it back into either the main vault if you have like an expired location, or sometimes departments will do a full waste event as well. So kind of just depending on your process. And I think, Liz, I saw, I think a question pop up, so I'll pause there in case there's a question on this part.
Yeah, you bet. Good eyes, Brian. We do have a question. Do the medics have to do an arriving and departing check, or is that done all at one time?
Yeah, great question. So let me go back to that just to kind of visually show you. So you can do it either way. You can have a combined arriving departing check, and that's kind of what I illustrated. In our demo site here, we kind of have it set up both ways just for illustration's sake. You can have it separated. So this is a kind of an example of what that would look, right? Where you have two different events, one for arriving, one for departing. But you can also have a combined one where they just do it at the same time. to kind of make it a little more efficient. So I'd say usually what we see is the combined check, where the medics, basically two medics, right, will be doing that event at the same time, and then both signing off on that. So hopefully that answered that. If not, just let me know and I can dive into that a little bit further.
Perfect. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, you bet. All right. And the other big page here, which is really handy for administrators especially, is the vial list page. And the vial list page essentially shows you all of your vials across the entire department. And you can see what type of controlled substances you have, where they're currently located. We can search by a particular control number, a particular lot number. So if there's ever a recall, we can just pull up that lot and we can see all of the locations where those vials are. And that way we can pull them out of service. If for expiration dates, you can sort by that to see anything that's currently expired, which will always be in red. We got a lot of them here we need to get rid of. If there's anything coming up for expiration, so within the next 60 days, those will be orange. You can see those as well. You'll see some other important information like concentration, volume. You can also see when it was last logged. So like for this first vial as an example, I can see that Todd did an arriving check on it on September 26th, and that was the last time that particular vial was verified. I'm going to open up the details page and show you that in a second. Another just use case is if you want to look at a particular location like your main vault, you can filter by that location and it'll show you how many vials you have in total. And if I want to filter a little bit further, so let's just say I want to know how many fentanyl I have in my main vault, it'll show me that as well. So I have 111 fentanyl currently. Obviously there's several that are expired, and then these are all the rest of them that I have in that location. And then the details page for every individual vial, you can click on this details button and it'll show you the complete history of that vial from cradle to grave, which is pretty cool to see. In this example, this is a vial of ketamine, and this is the control number for that one. But you can see basically it got restocked into our regional vault, and essentially it's been sitting there. This maybe isn't the best example, but you can see all the different inventory checks, right, that we've done on this particular vial. And then finally, it looks like in February, it got moved out of the regional vault and transferred into the Engine 4 drug box. And it's kind of been sitting there ever since. But what you would ultimately see once it's used or expired is you'd see a final event down here at the bottom, kind of capturing that that administered event, or again, if you expired it, it'll show that as well. Any of the used vials that you have, we put those in the vial archive. So this is basically the history of all the older vials. And the reason we separate them is just so that your current inventory isn't cluttered up with all of your historical vials, because this list can become pretty long over time. But let's just say we want to, find a particular fentanyl that was administered. We can pull that up and you can see here's all of the vials that were administered or expired. And you can obviously, filter for a particular one. So let's say I want to look at control number 2021. We can pull that up really quick and then look at the details and see that history just like I showed you. So that's the vial list page. And I think the last thing just to touch on here, the alerts, I showed those a little bit on the home dashboard, but there's also an open alerts page that will show you those. Again, you can turn on alerts if you want to see every administered vial. You can be notified of that. If a vial, or I'm sorry, a location falls below a par level, you can get notified of that too. And you can turn that on for certain locations, but not others. So what some agencies will do is just have this notification turned on for their main vault, because they want to, be made aware if they need to reorder vials for the agency, but they turn it off for all the drug boxes because they don't want to be receiving notifications for every single drug box. So just depending on how you want to set it up, we can turn that on or off for each location. And I think those are kind of the examples I'm seeing in here. You can, as I mentioned before, you can set manual alerts as well. So if you have a cyber key that goes missing, or if a vial gets, stolen or is misplaced, you can set an automatic alert, or I'm sorry, set a manual alert to send notifications out to the right people so that everyone's aware of that. And then digging into the settings a little bit, I won't get into this in too much detail, but this is where we kind of do a lot of the configuration and the setup for your department. The container section, this is where we kind of build out all the different containers that you want to manage. In addition to the normal locations like vaults and drug boxes, you can have special event boxes as well. We have some departments that use those for things like sporting events or festivals and things like that. And each location, we can determine the different par levels that you want. So for example, the Engine 2 drug box, it carries 3 fentanyl, 3 ketamine, and 3 Versed. And anytime it dips below or above that, that's when those par level notifications will be sent out. So those are the containers. The different events, this is where we turn on seal tags if you're using seal tags, and you can actually use multiple tags if you need to. We have our different events and the custom fields that you can add for each of those. So this is where we kind of set that up and configure those. And then the alert recipients, I think this will be the last page I touch on, but for each of the locations, anytime there are alerts, you can determine the appropriate people that need to receive those alerts. I'd say usually on the controlled substance side, the recipients tend to be the same for every location. Usually it's, like the medical director or the EMS chief or, those type of individuals that will want to receive the alert notifications. All right. Well, Liz, I know that was a lot of information, but I'll kind of pause there and see if there's any additional questions that I can help answer. If not, I can switch back to the slide deck and we can talk about next events or upcoming events too.
Sure. I do actually have 2 more questions.
Okay.
The first one is, can you show an example of what type of reports can be shown? The 2 questions actually surround reporting. One is about DEA compliant reporting, and the other one is like maybe forecasting. Can you show past use expenses to try to figure out like next year's budget needs and what waste might have been, and kind of go over what that looks like?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, on the controlled substance side, the big report for DEA is the logs. So, whoops, I went into the wrong section here. The transaction logs that I kind of showed a little bit earlier, this is all those different handoff events. So really if you're doing your controlled substance checks on paper right now, this is the replacement for that, or the digital version, if you will. So, any of your locations, you can come in here and pull up those logs and it'll show you every single one of them, as well as who completed it and all the signatures and all the information that went along with it. So yeah, for DEA, that's really the main spot, the main, I guess, record source, if you will, for all those handoff events. On the trending side, on the controlled substances, we don't have a report for that quite yet that will show you like how many vials have been used over each month, for example. But we do have that for our consumable supplies, which is in our inventory module. So for all of your EMS supplies and station supplies, I'll just to show you really quick, we have a trend report, and I'll just go back a few months here. And this trend report, I think, is I hope this is answering the question. But this trend report will show you essentially the different months, month by month, and all the items that were used during that month, and kind of the monthly average, what the total cost was, and if there was any expired items, what that worked out to be. So I'll let this load up here for a second. But yeah, what we're doing actually is we're taking this trend report, and our plan is to, there it goes, just popped up. So this is kind of what it looks like with all the different items, and you can see the usage amounts for each month, as well as the average, the total amount used over that time period, and then the if there's any expired, what the cost of those were. So this type of report is something we're hoping to kind of build into the controlled substance module to have the equivalent on that side. Thanks, Liz. Yeah, any more questions before we kind of wrap up the demo portion?
No, sir. Carry on.
Okay. Thanks. Well, yeah, I'll transition over here, Liz, if you want to go through some of our upcoming events really quick.
You bet, Ryan. Thanks. We have a few events rounding out the rest of the year. I also would like to invite you all to check out our website, PSTrax.com, because we do have a new events module available out there that will show where we're at, where you can sign up for more informational events. It's a really great way to get to know what we're up to. On the schedule, we do have November 8th, how to take your checks digital with PSTrax. This is our general overview webinar where we go over all of the modules and the capabilities of PSTrax. It's great for anybody new to PSTrax, including any new folks in your crews who need to see the system and just want to take a brief hour to get accustomed to it, acclimated to it. And then we also do a extensive Q&A in there as well, just like in this session. So it's a great time to ask those questions. And then on November 15th, we are doing a webinar on the inventory module, where we will talk more about the module Ryan just jumped into quick to show that trend report, how to track your inventory levels and make sure that everything is stocked where you need it before you need it. So a couple really good events to look forward to.
Great, thanks, Liz. Yeah, and I just before I kind of sign off, I forgot to talk about the pricing for the controlled substance module. But if anyone would like to get pricing or to have a more detailed demonstration for your team specifically, that's typically what we'll do, is kind of a virtual demo for your team, and that way, if you have other folks that want to ask questions or you'd like to get their feedback on, we can kind of do one specifically for you. So I think Liz has a final poll for that she'll put up, but if you need a demo, or if you would like pricing for the controlled substance module, just let us know and we can help out with that. On the pricing side, for this module, we price it based on the number of managed locations that you have, which is basically the number of vaults, the number of drug boxes, and if you have any, vaults or safes, I should say, and then number of drug boxes, essentially. So we just kind of count up all those different locations and then price it based on that. So anyways, yeah, just let us know if we can be of assistance, and I'll let Liz kind of wrap up here. But thanks everyone for hopping on today. Really appreciate your time, and look forward to hopefully seeing you next month too.
Thanks, Ryan. Yes, we put up a poll if you guys want us to get in touch with you about any pricing, further training, a demo specifically on this module for anybody else. You can let us know right here and we'll make sure to reach out to you. We did record the session, so we will send you out a copy of this recording tomorrow. You'll get it via email. Sometimes it finds its way to your junk folder, so if you don't see it by tomorrow afternoon, double check that junk folder, or you can reach out to Ryan or I, and we can send you the link to it as well. And that's free for you to share and show anybody in your agencies that you think would benefit from it. Otherwise, we're going to sign off and wrap up and get everybody back to their regularly scheduled days. thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate it, and stay safe out there.